Okay, guys, I have to tell you about yesterday because it's been running through my mind like a song on repeat, and I'm still trying to make sense of it. I'm Emma, 20 years old, a college sophomore juggling classes, a barista job, and life in a tiny apartment. I found my neighbor Ethan's wallet outside the cafe where I work, tucked under a table leg like it was hiding from the world. When I brought it to his door, he was so grateful, but also kind of flustered, like he wasn't used to someone going out of their way for him. He's married, totally off limits, and I was just doing the right thing. But then he invited me in for coffee, and our small talk turned into something more. The way he looked at me, the way we laughed, it felt like we both found something we didn't know we'd lost. My heart's still racing, and I need to share every detail. Stick with me and please like and subscribe for more stories like this. The late afternoon sun dipped low, casting a golden glow through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Brewed Awakening, the coffee shop where I worked part-time. I, Emma, was wiping down the counter, my apron streaked with espresso stains and my dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail that was starting to unravel after a 6-hour shift. It was 5:30 p.m. on a crisp October day, and the cafe was quiet. The lunchtime rush long gone and the evening crowd still an hour away. The air smelled of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon, and the soft hum of indie music played through the speakers, blending with the occasional clink of mugs and the hiss of the espresso machine. My sneakers squeaked on the hardwood floor as I moved to clear a table outside, where a few crumpled napkins and an empty cup sat abandoned under the striped awning. That's when I saw it, a black leather wallet, tucked under the leg of a wobbly metal table, as if someone had placed it there to steady it. I crouched down, the cool pavement rough against my knees, and picked it up, brushing off a bit of dirt. It was worn but soft, the leather creased from use, and I flipped it open, curious. The driver's license inside showed a familiar face, Ethan Carter, my neighbor across the hall. His photo stared back at me, his dark blonde hair slightly tousled, his hazel eyes looking straight into the camera with a hint of a smile that made my stomach flutter. He was probably in his early 30s, and I'd seen him around the building enough to recognize him instantly, usually in the hallway, carrying a laptop bag or chatting with his wife, Claire. They'd moved in about 4 months ago, and we'd exchanged small talk about the weather, the creaky elevator, the best pizza place nearby. Claire was a lawyer, always rushing off in sleek blazers, her blonde bob perfect and her eyes focused, like she was already arguing a case in her head. Ethan was different, warm, approachable, with a grin that lingered a little too long, making my cheeks flush before I could stop them. Not that I was noticing. He was married, and I was just the college kid next door, juggling psychology classes and rent. I slipped the wallet into my backpack, deciding to return it on my way home. It was only a 10-minute walk to our apartment building, a 4-story brick walk-up with peeling paint and a front door that jammed more often than it opened smoothly. I figured Ethan would appreciate getting his wallet back before he noticed it was gone, and it felt like the right thing to do. I finished my shift, wiping down the last of the tables and clocking out with a wave to my coworker, Mia, who was already steaming milk for the next order. The evening air was cool as I stepped outside, zipping up my denim jacket and tugging my scarf tighter around my neck. The streets were bustling with people heading home, the sky tinged with orange and pink as the sun sank below the horizon, casting long shadows across the pavement. My apartment building loomed ahead, its brick facade weathered but sturdy, the kind of place that had seen decades of tenants come and go. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, my sneakers thudding softly on the worn carpet, the hallway smelling faintly of dust and laundry detergent. I stood outside Ethan's door, apartment 3B, and hesitated, my heart giving a little jump. What if Claire answered? What if he wasn't home? I brushed the thought aside, took a deep breath, and knocked. Clutching the wallet in my hand, my fingers tracing the worn leather nervously, the door opened, and there he was. looking slightly disheveled in a gray t-shirt and faded jeans. His dark blonde hair messier than usual, like he'd been running his hands through it while working. His hazel eyes widened in surprise, then softened with recognition, a smile spreading across his face. "Emma?" he said, his voice laced with confusion. "Hey, what's up?" I held up the wallet, managing a smile despite the flutter in my stomach. "Found this outside the cafe, under a table. Figured you'd want it back." His jaw dropped slightly, and he reached for it, his fingers brushing mine as he took it. The touch was brief, but it sent a tiny spark through me, like static electricity. And I hoped the dim hallway hid the flush creeping up my neck. "Oh my God, you're a lifesaver," he said, flipping it open to check inside driver's license, a couple of credit cards, a few crumpled receipts. I didn't even realize it was gone. "Where was it?" "Under a table leg, like it was holding it up," I said, laughing softly. "You owe that table a thank you for keeping it safe." He chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners, the sound low and warm. "No kidding. I must have dropped it when I was there this morning. Thank you. Seriously. I owe you big time." I waved it off, shoving my hands in my pockets to keep them still. "No big deal. Just being a good neighbor." He leaned against the doorframe, his gaze lingering on me, warm and a little flustered, like he wasn't used to someone going out of their way for him. "Still, that was really cool of you to bring it over. Most people wouldn't bother." He paused, then added, his smile softening. "Want to come in for a sec? I've got coffee brewing, and it's the least I can do." I hesitated, my heart giving another jump. Claire's name flashed in my mind, a sharp reminder of the line I couldn't cross. But his smile was so genuine, and the idea of coffee after a long shift was too tempting to resist. "Isha, I don't want to intrude." He shook his head, stepping aside to hold the door open. "No intrusion. Come on, it's just coffee. Claire's at the office late tonight, so it's just me." My stomach fluttered at the mention of Claire, but I nodded, stepping inside, my heart racing as he closed the door behind me. His apartment was a mirror of mine in size small, about 500 square feet, but neater, with a leather couch facing a small TV, a dining table with a vase of fresh flowers, and a shelf lined with books and vinyl records. A laptop sat open on the coffee table, a graphic design project glowing on the screen, colorful logos and sketches, probably for a client. The air smelled of freshly brewed coffee, warm and inviting, with a hint of something woodsy, maybe his cologne. The space felt cozy, with exposed brick walls and a floor lamp casting a soft golden glow. I noticed small touches of Clara, framed photo of them on a hiking trail, her arm around his waist, both smiling in the sunlight, a stack of legal journals on the table, a pair of heels by the door. My heart twinged, a nudge that I was just the neighbor, here for a quick coffee, and nothing more. But the way Ethan's eyes lingered on me, warm and curious, made it hard to focus on that line. "Make yourself at home," he said, heading to the kitchen nook, a small counter with a coffee maker and a few mismatched mugs. "Black coffee, okay? Or you want cream and sugar?" "Black's perfect," I said, perching on the edge of the couch, my backpack at my feet. My t-shirt was slightly wrinkled from my shift, and I smoothed it self-consciously, aware of my casual appearance, black leggings, scuffed sneakers, no makeup, my freckles stark against my skin. My ponytail was fraying, and I tucked a loose strand behind my ear, hoping I didn't look as frazzled as I felt. But Ethan didn't seem to care, his movements easy, as he poured coffee into 2 ceramic mugs, one blue, one green. He handed me the blue mug, our fingers brushing again, and I felt that spark, stronger this time, like a current running through my hand. I wrapped my hands around the mug, the warmth seeping into my chilled fingers, and took a sip, the bitter heat grounding me. "Thanks," I said, smiling up at him. "This is way better than the instant stuff I have at home." He chuckled, leaning against the counter opposite me, the kitchen open to the living room. "Barista, and you're drinking instant? That's a crime," I laughed. rolling my eyes, but my cheeks warmed under his gaze. Hey, I'm a broke college student. Instant's my reality. You're lucky I don't just drink energy drinks. He grinned, his hazel eyes sparkling in the lamplight. Fair enough, but you're welcome to the good stuff here anytime. Perks of having a neighbor who knows his way around a coffee maker. The air between us shifted, the quiet filled with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside, muted by the brick walls. Our eyes met, and for a moment neither of us spoke, the silence heavy with something unspoken. I knew I should keep things light, but his gaze was warm, searching, like he was seeing me for the first time. My heart raced, and I took another sip, trying to steady myself. The coffee's bitterness a sharp contrast to the flutter in my stomach. So, I said, forcing a lighter tone, setting my mug on the coffee table, how's life across the hall? You and Claire must have this place dialed in by now. He shrugged, his smile softening, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Tiredness, maybe, or something heavier. It's good. Claire's always swamped with work, so I'm usually the one holding things together here. Freelance graphic design keeps me tied to my laptop, but it's flexible, which helps. I nodded, sensing the weight behind his words, the hint of a life stretched thin. Sounds intense. Do you ever get a break? He chuckled, running a hand through his hair, making it messier in a way that was unfairly charming. Not often. I sneak in some music or a walk to the cafe actually. Gotta stay sane, you know? I smiled, leaning back slightly, my hands still wrapped around the mug. Music, huh? Let me guess. Classic rock. His eyebrows shot up and he grinned, clearly impressed. You're good. Yeah, Springsteen's my guy. You a fan? My dad's obsessed, so I grew up on Born to Run, I said, setting my mug down. What's your favorite? He took a sip, his eyes never leaving mine, a spark of connection in his gaze. Thunder Road. Something about it just hits. That feeling of wanting to escape. Start over. I nodded, leaning forward, my elbows on my knees. Solid choice. It's got that let's get out of here vibe. He laughed, his gaze softening, the sound warm and genuine. Exactly. You get it. He paused, then added, what about you? What's your escape from college chaos? I tilted my head, thinking, the coffee's warmth spreading through me. Old rom-coms, mostly. When Harry Met Sally is my go-to. I've watched it at least a dozen times. He raised an eyebrow, his smile turning playful. Rom-coms? Didn't peg you for a hopeless romantic. I laughed, rolling my eyes, my cheeks warming again. Not hopeless. Just hopeful. There's a difference. He grinned, setting his mug down, his eyes locked on mine. Noted. You're full of surprises, Emma. The air thickened, and I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. He was married. I was just the neighbor. But the way he was looking at me, like he was noticing every detail, my freckles, the way my hair fell loose from my ponytail made my heart race. I needed to steer this back to safer ground. My eyes drifted to his coffee table, where a pile of papers, pens, and post-it notes was scattered around his laptop, looking like it hadn't been organized in weeks. Your desk is kind of a disaster, I said, forcing a playful tone to break the tension. Want to help tidying it up? I owe you for the coffee. He raised an eyebrow, but his smile didn't fade. You're volunteering for chores now. I'm not saying no to that. I laughed, standing and moving to the table, setting my mug aside. He followed, and we started sorting through the papers, client briefs, hand-drawn sketches, a few post-it notes with deadlines scrawled in his neat handwriting. Our fingers brushed as we handed items back and forth, each touch sending a spark through me like a match catching flame. We talked as we worked, the conversation flowing effortlessly, his love for design, how he'd once spent all night perfecting a logo for a client who changed their mind the next day. My psych classes, how I was fascinated by why people made the choices they did, like why someone might drop their wallet and not notice. We laughed about the upstairs neighbor who vacuumed at midnight, the sound echoing through the thin ceiling, and he teased me about my barista skills, claiming I probably made better coffee than he did. You're one to talk, I shot back, holding up a crumpled receipt from a pizza place. This is from 3 months ago. You ever throw anything away? He chuckled, taking it from me, his fingers grazing mine. Lingering just a moment too long. Only the stuff I don't need. Keeps life interesting. I laughed, but the air between us shifted again. The silence filled with the soft clink of mugs and the hum of the city outside. Our eyes met, and for a moment neither of us moved, the space between us charged with something unspoken. I knew I should pull back, but my hand lingered on a stack of papers, my fingers close to his, and the warmth of his gaze made it hard to think straight. As we sorted, I noticed a small lamp on the table, its light flickering slightly like the bulb was loose. Your lamp's acting up, I said, pointing to it. Want me to take a look? I'm no electrician, but I can twist a bulb. He chuckled, his eyes crinkling. You're just full of talents, aren't you? Go for it. I've been meaning to fix that. I reached for the lamp, unscrewing the bulb and tightening it back in, my movements careful but clumsy under his gaze. He stood close, watching, and when the light steadied, I grinned, stepping back, my shoulder brushing his. There, no more disco vibes. He laughed, his voice low. You're hired. What's next, rewiring the place? I grinned, leaning against the table, our arms close enough to feel the warmth of his skin. Don't tempt me. I'd probably burn the building down. He chuckled, his eyes locking onto mine, and for a moment, the room felt too small, the air too warm. Your trouble, Emma, he said, his voice teasing but soft. I can tell. Trouble's not always a bad thing, I said, my voice quieter than I meant, the words slipping out before I could stop them. The air thickened, and I swallowed hard, trying to keep my cool. We finished tidying the table, the surface looking almost respectable, and moved back to the couch, sitting a little closer than before, our knees almost touching. The conversation drifted to our lives, my small town upbringing, where the biggest event was the annual county fair, his college days at a state school, where he'd fallen into graphic design after a failed attempt at engineering. We talked about our favorite books. Mine were psych thrillers, his were biographers and our worst dates, laughing over my story of a guy who spent an entire dinner talking about his ex and his tale of a date who hated rock music. The air felt lighter, but that spark was still there, humming beneath every word, every glance. Eventually I glanced at my phone, 7 p.m. Time had slipped away, and I knew I should go. I should probably get back, I said, my voice reluctant, my heart sinking a little. I've taken up enough of your evening. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me, warm and searching, like he wasn't ready for me to leave. Yeah, probably. But this was nice, really nice. My heart fluttered, and I bit my lip, trying to keep my cool. Yeah, it was. I grabbed my backpack, slinging it over my shoulder, and he walked me to the door. Here, I said, gesturing to the wallet on the table. Don't lose it again. He chuckled, picking it up and slipping it into his pocket. No promises, but I'll try. I smiled and he opened the door, but I paused, turning to face him. Thanks for the coffee, I said, my voice soft, my hand reaching out to touch his arm lightly, a gesture of gratitude that lingered just a moment too long. The touch was electric, my fingers tingling against his sleeve, and our eyes met, warm and searching, the air between us charged with something neither of us could name. Thanks for the wallet, he said, his voice low, his gaze softening. You're kind of amazing, Emma. My heart raced and I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. Anytime, Ethan. You know where to find me. I stepped into the hallway, the cool air a shock after the warmth of his apartment, but I couldn't resist one last tease, needing to lighten the moment before it consumed me. Next time I'll expect a full dinner spread. Maybe some of that pizza from your ancient receipt. He grinned, leaning against the door frame, his eyes never leaving mine. Deal. See you around, Emma. As he closed the door, I walked across the hall to my apartment, my heart pounding against my ribs. The memory of his touch, his smile, his voice lingered, a spark we both felt. One I knew we shouldn't chase but couldn't quite forget. Thanks for listening to my confession, guys. I hope you felt that spark as much as I did. If you loved this story, please like and subscribe for more.